This is a production of SDPB. Donors to the Explore South Dakota Fund support the production of local documentaries and other programs of local interest presented by SDPB. Friends of SDPB appreciates their support of this program.
Welcome to Dakota Life Detours. If not for those who record history, the way of life for so many would be forgotten. On this episode of Dakota Life, we hear the extraordinary experiences of ordinary folks. First, we sit down with Clark Ahrens, who remembers his grandpa, Garfield Simons, as a cowboy, a wolfer, and when the need was urgent, a dentist. Just 2 generations separate Clark from the Wild West in the last open range cattle drive.
Back at that time, the wolves were real bad predators. They killed a lot of cattle and horses and whatever. And there was a bounty on them. And I think it was in $50 or something for an adult wolf, which at that time was huge. But the story is that my granddad and 2 other men, they found a wolf den. He says, when we went down the next morning, we saw 2 big gray wolves outside the den, and then I had to crawl into the den. There was a short bend in the hole, so I couldn't get through, so he sent one of the small carny boys into the hole. He came out scared to death. Is it all right if I read this? He said, there is an old one in there. The boy was afraid to go back in, so I took a hatchet and cut out the hole so I could crawl back in where the pups were. I took my saddle rope and I put it on around one hind foot of the wolf. She was growling when I was putting it on. And wolf and coyote hunting was a pretty big deal with him. He was kind of what they called a wolfer. But he was a cowboy. He was have you ever heard of the Cowboys of 1902? The 1902 deal was that they considered the last big roundup. It was all open. Everything was open. There was no fences. Cattle outfits, you branded them and turned them loose, and who knows where they went. So all these cowboys would be hired to round up these cattle, and they rounded up from dozens and hundreds of miles. And they had their representatives there, and then they would say, well, that's Joe's cow, and that's Carl's calf. And so anyway, when those guys got elderly, then they formed an association that's called the Cowboys of 1902. Another thing that is very interesting that he did, I'll read you this. There were no dentists except in Sturgis and Rapid City. So when anyone had a toothache, they would come to they called him Gory, and he would pull their teeth. He had a pair of forceps and pulled teeth for many who came. He didn't pull the teeth until the pain became unbearable. Well, I guess they knew how to do it. You don't survive out here unless you know the ropes.
To learn more about South Dakota's history, visit the Cultural Heritage Center in Pierre, or any of the many local museums that preserve stories and artifacts of South Dakota's small towns. The West River Nurse Honor Guard is a nonprofit group of volunteer nurses who attend funerals or memorial services for any fallen nurse in western South Dakota. For Heather Salon, founder and president of the group, their goal is to honor nurses in life and in death.
You should be strong, because as a nurse, people will depend on you. You should be trustworthy, because people will confide in you. You should be steady, dependable, self-reliant, tactful, and a sincere interest in human beings of all classes and kinds.
Nursing is very powerful. They're there for your whole life. They're there when you're born, they're there when you pass away. And especially after COVID and that pandemic, we lost a lot of nurses. I don't think people realize how many nurses lost their lives on the job. We just need to say thank you. Your career and your dedication did not go unnoticed. You deserve this honor. You deserve to be recognized for your career. I guess I'm just kind of biased and think that we're pretty darn special. I have wanted to be a nurse ever since I was a little girl. I was going to either be a baby nurse or an Olympic swimmer, and I lived in the Sandhills of Nebraska, so I knew that probably Olympic swimming wasn't going to cut it, so I went with nursing. But I've always wanted to be a nurse, a baby nurse. It was always, I wanted to be a baby nurse, so L&D, OB, postpartum.
In 1973, I started as a nurse's aide at the nursing home. I took care of the 1902 Cowboys. I took care of Billy Shawn and Jake Handley, and I just loved it. And I saved up enough money to pay my way through school. So that's how I got started.
When you first start out, you're in nursing school with other people, and you're in nursing school for a long time, and you start the family there.
You don't ever work alone. You work with other nurses and you glean from them. I know I gleaned from the older nurses when I was a young nurse. You just get a camaraderie between the nurses. You have a lot in common.
You go through the same thing with the tests and the clinicals and the teachers, and are we going to pass? This is hard. I read somewhere that nursing school is to get your bachelor's in nursing is one of the hardest professions to pass. So just passing nursing school bonds you with other people, and then when you work somewhere for years and years and years, you get to know those coworkers, and just taking care of the patients and dealing with the doctors and the politics of the hospital and all the craziness, it just bonds you because we're together all the time when we work. And so if you're in a smaller facility, that can be even more. You see those people a lot more, so.
We would often go into the nurses' lounge, though, if it was a hard day, and kind of spill our guts to each other. And that was comforting to have somebody to talk to. And it was comforting to have help when you needed help. If you were in a bad situation, generally you were not by yourself. So it is like a family, like a true family. Well, Nurses Honor Guard is a group of nurses, some retired, some are still active, that get together at funerals of former nurses that have passed away. And it's just a ceremony that honors them in an awesome way.
I like to be up with the casket or the urn through the whole ceremony, if it's okay with the pastor or the clergy, just because I feel like we are guarding them. We are there with them. We're holding their hand till the very end. I know they're there in spirit. I know these nurses are there. I feel them. I know they are. Please bow your head as we do a nurse's prayer. Give to my heart, O Lord, compassion and understanding. I just want to be there to let them know that we love you and you did not get forgotten. And we are standing beside you till the end. At this time, I would like to recite the Nightingale Pledge.
That's kind of why we do what we do, is because when nurses do pass away, their career also leaves. It passes away with them.
Now I would like to say the Florence Nightingale Tribute. It breaks my heart if I'm not able to get to a service and perform this ceremony, because I just know that if she or he, because we do this for male or female, if they could see or be there in the physical form to see this for them, I just know that it would move them to tears, because it moves their family to tears. We want to give you this white rose to symbolize our honor and appreciation for being our colleague.
We want to get ourselves out there so that the funeral homes pick up on what we do, and that there aren't any nurses that have passed away that are missed. They deserve to have the honor guard come, and they deserve to have that final send-off.
It fills up a hole in my heart for just our profession, and the families tell me thank you, and they're just overwhelmed, and I say no, thank you. Thank you for letting me do this for you, because trust me, this means more to me than you probably know.
And if this is one small way that we can just honor them in the end, it's kind of like taking care of another nurse, isn't it? I think it's a neat thing. I hope they do that for me.
Jean Marion Radway. I feel healed and hopefully give hope and take some pain away from the families that are saying goodbye. Jean Marion Radway. And honoring their nurse to let them know that his career or her career was wonderful, and it did not go unnoticed. We officially release you from your nursing duties. That's our motto. That's the West River Nurse Honor Guard motto, is we honor nurses in life and in death. May you go rest in peace.
The ceremony is free of charge for families. The chapter does accept donations to help with expenses. Contact information is available at most West River funeral homes, and the group also relies on family, friends, and clergy to contact the Honor Guard when a nurse is passed. B. Shelsky and Alice Heger began to live their dream of becoming country music stars as they sang on Mitchell's KORN radio in the 1940s.
Beyond the blue. Back in the day, radio listeners were entertained by live performers. Among them were the Parkston Pals.
Well, that was kind of by accident. We cleaned the tables at high school to earn our hot lunch. We just started singing for the fun of it, and one thing led to another.
In 1947, two best friends from Parkston began to live their dream of becoming country music stars as they sang on KORN radio.
Mitchell, South Dakota, at the Paramount Theater, they had a country western jamboree on Saturday afternoons. And so anybody who wanted to perform and stuff could go and have a place on the stage. And so we started going up there on Saturday afternoons.
We were approached that we could have 15 minutes of air time.
Way up on top of the High Bank building in Mitchell, South Dakota. Way at the top of that big building. So we had a lot of steps to climb. I don't think they had an elevator in those days. And we found our sponsors. Well, then we got paid for doing it, you know. And so, that was fun. The days we got paid, then we'd go shopping. We canvassed Mitchell and go shopping. Oh, that was the best years of our life.
Oh, yes. We were country music people, you know, living our dream.
You know, my desire as a kid was to be a country western singer. And that was just up my alley. And then we'd have to read our fan mail. Dear girls, please sing a song for Darlene and Charlie, Ardina and Ralph, Dolores and Leroy, and also for everyone else who is in love. I have to tell you, time we got the giggles.
You know, a nervous giggle. When you get nervous, you sometimes happens. And that did happen.
We couldn't even look at each other and we'd start laughing uncontrollably. Our mothers were shooting daggers out of their eyes. They were mad at us, but we couldn't stop. I have 11 brothers and 3 sisters all together. Love to hear you sing and yodel.
You guys yodel?
Oh yes, we were good at that. Well, folks, that's all the time we have for today. We'll see you next week.
Haven't got a worry,
haven't got a care, haven't got a thing to call my own.
Though I'm out of money,
I'm a millionaire, 'cause I still have my home in San Antone.
Fan mail, requests for autographs. The women say they didn't let fame go to their heads, and it didn't change the way their schoolmates treated them either. The Pals graduated in 1949, and just a few months later, Alice married Don Hager, and the couple left South Dakota for his career. Bea also married the love of her life and settled close to Parkston. Although this move marked the end of their radio career, it did not end their friendship. 74 years later, they remain the best of friends. Today, the women live in Sioux Falls in Scotland. They visit frequently over the phone.
Local country music on radio stations was popular all across the Midwest. SDPB produced a story about WNAX Radio in Yankton and how they brought the experience of a South Dakota barn dance to listeners all over the upper Midwest. The Missouri Valley Barn Dance broadcasts every Saturday night. The show can be heard from Kansas City to Fargo to Des Moines. Go to watch.sdpb.org/images of the past to learn more about the golden age of country radio in South Dakota. The Depression and Dust Bowl were tough times for many South Dakotans. Today, Irene Jordan of Faith is among only a few South Dakotans left who remembers the drought, the dust, and the hunger.
Born in 1923 in a one-room log cabin northwest of Faith, on a homestead near North Flint Rock Creek, Irene Clausen Jordan knows the history of this area well, because for nearly a century, she has lived it. Throughout her life, she took the time to document the stories of the neighbors who settled in this remote ranch country. Native Americans, cowboys, wolfers, homesteaders, mothers, fathers, children.
They were all our neighbors along North Flint Rock Creek. North Flint Rock never completely dried up during the drought. And those were neighbors. Who's going to remember them? I don't think there's anyone alive that remembers any of those people.
The author of many short factual articles and books, including Matt the Wolfer, which gives an account of her father's life as an early cowboy and wolfer, Irene Jordan took it upon herself to document a group of homesteaders whose stories are often left untold. Women.
Well, you see, in every old book, it's always Mr. and Mrs. John or Mr. and Mrs. Tom, never even give their names.
Her friend Kathy Timmons has read most of Irene's work and appreciates the time and care Irene took to document the lives of ranch women.
I think of, the people she has known and met and the work they have done and the things they have built. And her stories of the women in this country who have had their own contributions, which probably for the most part aren't terribly recognized. And she's right, men's names are the first ones on a lot of things, but they wouldn't have stayed. They come through the country, but they don't plant the flowers, and they don't plant the trees, and they don't do the gardens, and they don't raise the babies that stay and make it a town or a state or a country.
An avid scrapbooker, throughout her life she has filled volumes. Irene's first scrapbook was sewn by her older sister out of old grocery sacks. It was the Depression. Even today, Irene has vivid memories of the Depression.
Lack of money, lack of grass. It was a real drought. The rhubarb and the asparagus, our crabapple trees, everything died off. And you were just afraid to use too much water, that maybe your well would go dry. It was scary.
She shared about Black Sunday and the fact that her family nearly starved to death. Tough times on the ranch meant she could not attend high school. Perhaps the saddest memory is the day when her dad asked her to take his horses to town to sell because he could no longer afford to feed them.
And Dad said, "Would you drive these horses to town for me?" I was about 14, 15. And I thought, well, my goodness, you know them and drove them and everything. Why are you asking me to take them? But it was because he couldn't stand seeing them go.
Along with documenting history, Irene preserved it. She organized the Faith Area Historical Society and was instrumental in saving historical buildings like Flannery's 1911 Beer and Ice House and the Stensland House, which she helped turn into the Stensland Museum. For South Dakota Public Broadcasting, I'm Laura Rohde.
Irene Klassen was born on a ranch northwest of Faith in 1923. Through articles and books, she has been instrumental in preserving the history of Faith's homesteaders. The South Dakotans we've introduced you to understand the importance of remembering and preserving our history, as well as honoring the people who came before us. Author David McCullough wrote, "History is who we are, and why we are the way we are." As we continue our travels across South Dakota, meeting folks and telling their stories of Dakota life, we'll take you on more detours along the way and share those stories of our state's heritage, culture, and way of life. For all of us at SDPB, I'm Tim Davison. Thanks for watching.